Just so you know, this show is about scary stuff. So don't say I didn't warn you guys. And remember, don't be scared.
Episode 76. Femicide. War Baby here with another episode of Murderous Minors. When 22-year-old Orlando Tercero hopped on a plane for Nicaragua in March of 2018, he sparked a manhunt that spanned countries, setting up an unprecedented turn of events for American justice. Never before had the country of Nicaragua tried a dual citizen for a crime committed in the United States, and never had an American been charged with the crime of femicide. Femicide as a crime refers to the act of murdering a woman that the killer already has a relationship with. To kill a woman you know in some countries is a crime of femicide and can carry with it differing sentences than some other kinds of homicide charges. On this episode of Murderous Minors, we're headed back to college, this time to Binghamton University in upstate New York. Orlando Tercero, Haley Anderson, and their undergraduate nursing program classmates at the Decker College of Nursing and Health Sciences were just 2 months away from graduation in March of 2018. All of the effort and concentration and sacrifice that it had taken to get this far was finally about to pay off. 22-year-old Orlando Tercero was born in Miami in late 1995, but by the age of 10, he and his parents had returned to their home country of Nicaragua. He graduated in 2013 from Colegio Hogar Paulo VI in his hometown of Chinandega, Nicaragua, just prior to his father's death from a heart attack on July 2nd of that year. He then moved to New York in 2014 with a scholarship to SUNY Binghamton. His father had been a doctor, so Orlando entering the healthcare field himself seemed natural to those who knew him. Friends recalled a caring individual who tried his best to make those around him happy. As a young adult, his support system consisted mainly of his roommates and his classmates in the nursing program, who remember him as being charismatic and carefree. Orlando returned home to Chinandega for part of every summer to relax and spend time with childhood friends. They also remember his affection for and ultimate obsession with 22-year-old Haley Anderson, a fellow nursing program student originally from Westbury, Long Island, New York. The profession of nursing offered Haley the opportunity to help people, and with graduation just a few months away, she had secured a job near home that had her parents thrilled at the thought of their daughter being nearby again. Boyfriend Kevin told CBS's 48 Hours that Haley dreamed about being a traveling nurse in California, living out of a van among sights and experiences unlike her native New York. Her mother called her the millennial hippie. This quest for freedom extended into her dating life, and although she dated boys with differing degrees of seriousness, her desire to remain mostly unattached was well known. Kevin and Haley had been dating during their junior year at Binghamton University, and she introduced him to Orlando Tercero at a party. They'd been in some of the same classes in the nursing program, but after this party at Kevin's house, the trio became close. All three enjoyed the social aspects of college, and over time, Orlando was welcomed into their friend group and into Kevin's fraternity. As couples often do, Haley and Kevin took breaks in their relationship as the stresses of looming adult lives bore down on them, but they always remained friends with Orlando. At some point while Haley and Kevin were broken up, she and Orlando crossed the friendship line into a physical relationship. Once word of the indiscretion got out, Orlando was kicked out of the fraternity for betraying one of his brothers. He used this fact to garner sympathy from Haley, basically blaming her for this turn of events and unfairly making her feel guilty. And regardless of what Haley told him, his desire for her affection only grew. The guilt over their hookup and its disastrous toll only made it harder for Haley to completely shut him out. Over the course of the last months of 2017, Orlando made himself an even more ever-present fixture in Haley's life. She already saw him at school, but now, even during non-school hours, Orlando always seemed to be around. He frequently stopped by the house she shared with her roommates to have a quick smoke out front, or sometimes he just drove by, as if to see who else was there. Haley often had her roommates deal with the situation for her, too nice and too tired of it to be effective herself, and they tried to be stern with him and make him realize that his behavior was inappropriate. The friction came to a head on September 15, 2017, when during a party at his house, Orlando discovered that Haley and Kevin had resumed their relationship. Kevin stayed over at Haley's house that night, and when she walked him out to his car the next morning, he saw that all 4 tires on her car had been slashed. The couple immediately thought that it had to be Orlando, but he tried to say that his tires had also been slashed. He didn't file a police report, but at her mother's urging, Haley did. It read in part, quote, "She stated that Orlando had confronted her about dating his friend, her now boyfriend, and that he got very upset and was shouting at her. She stated that Orlando then tried to smooth everything over with her by pouring shots for her and her friends, but that he'd had too many drinks himself and began throwing up." When Haley found out that the amount in damages was high enough to result in a felony charge, over $600, she decided to take care of the matter on her own. Haley did not press criminal charges as she didn't want Orlando's nursing school enrollment or future licensure and career to be in peril over what she perceived to be a seemingly minor incident. So, life went on. Fall became winter, and just as spring was dawning in 2018, Haley was suddenly missing. On Wednesday, March 7th, she and her roommates had spent the evening hanging out, staying up until into the early hours. They did not realize that at some point after they'd wrapped up their fun, Haley had gone over to Orlando's house. Security cameras on the front of his home on Oak Street on the west side of Binghamton had captured the pair entering at 3:14 a.m., and sadly, Haley is never seen alive again. She'd been drinking and was intoxicated, and at some point over the next 7 hours, Orlando strangled Haley to death, leaving her lifeless in his bed. The camera next captured him leaving after 10 in the morning on Thursday, March 8th. Orlando returned soon after with sleeping aids purchased at a nearby drugstore and disappeared from the camera's view for another 7 hours. This time, coming out the front door and appearing to head toward the entrance to the basement, located on the exterior of his home. Once down there, evidence suggested that Orlando attempted suicide, as a silky necktie was found looped and attached to some hooks screwed into a beam in the ceiling. Blood found underneath the contraption led investigators to believe that he had fallen and injured himself, then abandoned his fatal pursuit. Orlando had also penned what seemed like a suicide note that implicated him in Haley's murder. He had started by saying he was really sorry and that he didn't think he was capable of something like this. He went on to apologize to his mother and sisters before addressing his deceased father directly, saying he would see him soon. He ends with he is sorry and that this was stupid. At 8:22 p.m., the camera showed Orlando again leaving the house, this time with 2 suitcases. He is alone, his head wrapped in a bulky gauze bandage, presumably to cover injuries received when he tried to hang himself. Orlando left Binghamton and drove 3 hours southeast to JFK International Airport, with surveillance cameras there showing him still sporting a bandaged head hours later at 2:34 a.m. By the time Orlando left for the airport, Haley's roommates had become uneasy about her whereabouts. It wasn't totally unusual for no one to have heard from her that day, as they were all busy, especially since graduation was so close. In addition to being a college senior, Haley also worked at Jasmine's Brew and Bakery in the Glenn G. Bartle Library on campus. But when Haley failed to attend a poetry reading that Thursday night as she had promised her roommate, those close to her became instantly fully alarmed. Her social media accounts had lay untouched all day, adding to their confusion and fear. On Friday morning, March 9th, after not seeing or hearing from Haley for an entire day, her roommates checked the location of her cell phone using the Find My Friend's iPhone app, which pointed them directly to Orlando Tercero's house. So they went, filled with unease. Their trepidation only increased when they didn't see his car at home and no one answered the door. Haley's roommates took it upon themselves to crack a window and climb through in search of their friend who may have been in distress. And they found her there, lifeless, their friend who was always happy and just wanted to help people and experience every moment of life. The call came in to Binghamton police, but surprisingly, it was the second they had received that morning about the house on Oak Street. Just before Haley's roommates called, Orlando's sister had called them as well, after receiving a text from him that said he was on a plane to Nicaragua. He wrote that he had done something bad and was a disgrace to the family, and she had also told Orlando's roommate, who had called wondering if she had heard from her missing brother. 22-year-old Haley Anderson's bruised body was found tucked into Orlando Tercero's bed at 12:53 p.m. on Friday, March 9th, 2018. And once authorities realized he was almost 2,200 miles away at that point, they were more than afraid that he'd gotten away with stealing the life from someone he claimed to care about. Once he landed at 3:55 p.m., 48 Hours reported that Orlando's mother Martha collected him from the airport in the capital of Managua and drove him 3 hours north home to Chinandega. The following day, Saturday, March 10th, an autopsy was performed on Haley at Lourdes Hospital, where her death was ruled a homicide by mechanical asphyxiation. Back in Nicaragua, Orlando's wounds to his head and face became serious enough to worry his mother, and on Tuesday, March 13th, the day after he was named a person of interest in the States, she drove him an hour away to Leon to the hospital in a larger town for treatment. It was this visit that ultimately resulted in international fugitive Orlando Tercero being apprehended, and the following day, Nicaraguan National Police held a press conference to announce the high-profile arrest. He was shown in front of the police station, flanked by armed, masked officers sporting a bandaged head and a bruised chin, proving to the world that they had him in their custody. And it seemed that they had no intention of giving him back. Although an extradition agreement has been in place since 1907, the U.S. and Nicaragua had no formal agreement stating that they would without question be willing to hand over their own citizens. This episode is brought to you by Best Fiends. I just noticed that I've reached level 610 on Best Fiends, and wow, does time fly when you're having fun. As we know, living a life almost fully immersed in true crime can have a somewhat adverse effect on your psyche, and that's why I need Best Fiends, the infamously impossible to put down puzzle game with over 100 million downloads and counting. Working from home has its perks, but it is